Welcome back, I'm Raiden from Bluewood Gaming, and this week on Raiden Reviews, it's Battlefield 5, the game that shows that EA hasn't completely lost it. Since its deluxe edition release, I put 65 hours into it, and I think it's finally time to review it, so let's get right into this, starting with graphics. The general consensus is that Frostbite is a very good looking engine, and it continues that here, to the point where it's almost photorealistic, and I can easily say that it's miles ahead of its competitor Call of Duty. Although I would have liked them to turn down the lens flares a bit, and I've been blinded by the sun in this game a few too many times for my liking. Also, I don't know where the Frostbite engine is going to go after this. I can't reasonably say that there's going to be a large jump in graphical quality anytime in the near future. It already looks almost photorealistic. The only place that I can really see the Frostbite engine going is by making it more accessible on older hardware, because with my GTX 1070 and my i7-7700, even on medium and high settings, I can still get some frame drops. Although those settings don't even seem needed, because what you're seeing in the background is on the lowest settings, and the game still looks better than 90% of all games released this year. And next, let's move on to sound, music, and voice.
Gotcha, chum. Ammo, have it.
The first thing that I have to give major props for is how the guns sound in different environments. The easiest way to demonstrate this in-game is by taking a gun and shooting it. Then go indoors and shoot the same gun, and you will instantly hear the more thuddy, impactful sound that the gun makes. This mirrors real life wonderfully, and I don't remember very many other games that do this effect this well. The other sound effect that I'll single out for this section is the V1 rocket and its equivalent for the other factions. This sound, even after hearing it dozens, maybe hundreds of times, still invokes this sense of fear and wonder, as you can hear it from anywhere on the map, and then you can hear the giant explosion, and there's that small gap of silence in between where you're just wondering where is it going to drop and how close am I going to be to it. I'll talk a little bit more about the V1 rocket when we reach the gameplay section of this review, but for now let's move on to music. And this is the first place that I really don't like something in Battlefield 5. I think that the music, while fitting, just tries too hard. The composer tried to make every single piece this epic that you would hear at the end of Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, and I personally think that a soundtrack would be good with one or two of these, but having every single song in this kind of epic orchestral style just gets old, and it makes every single piece less impactful. I'm not a composer, so I don't know the way that you would go about fixing this, but I think that adding in a few pieces with just a few instruments, like an acoustic guitar or a small band, would really go to emphasize the larger orchestral pieces instead of having just every piece be a large orchestral piece. Or what they could have done is added in period-appropriate pieces. I'm talking popular music from the 30s and early 40s, in the same vein that Fallout does with music from the 50s and the 60s. But I digress, let's move on to voice. And something that I picked up on quite early that I think most people are going to overlook is that when you're playing as the Axis, the announcer speaks English in a German accent, but when you're actually interacting with other people on your team, as an Axis member, you are actually speaking German, and I think that most people are just going to gloss over that, but I think that that's a nice little addition that they did instead of having the entire Axis powers speak English in a German accent. And it kind of works the same way on the Allied side as well. The announcer on the Allied side speaks in a British accent, but the soldiers speak in both American and British accents to each other, although I wish they could have added in a few more, such as French, just to add more representation to more of the Allied nations in the game. Next, let's move on to story, and this is another section that I don't really like how Battlefield 5 does it. Once again, the war stories are back, and I personally really hate the war stories, although they did add more effort into them this time. Instead of just putting them on multiplayer maps like they were in Battlefield 1, they actually put some decent time and made some decent levels to play through in each of the 3 war stories that they're currently available. Although at this point, I really want them to either just spend the time to make one solid campaign or just get rid of the war stories completely, because they really want to tell a bunch of different stories really quickly, but in the end, I don't end up caring about any of them or any of the characters because I just don't have enough time to form any sort of bond with them. Most of them can be completed in under an hour with little to no effort, and I just think that either make a full 5 to 7 hour campaign or don't worry about it at all. Doing these kind of short war stories is not the way to do a campaign. And once again, they tried to add a bit of a personalized story to the multiplayer, this time with the Grand Operations mode. And here also, I really hate the story that they try to put together. The 2 main problems with the Grand Operations multiplayer mode is that, for one, there's not enough maps. Currently, there seems to only be about 3 Grand Operations campaigns, and so you're going to end up playing the same one over and over and over again. And for second, many of the maps seem highly unbalanced and favor one team over another. And while this does play somewhat of a thematical role in the story that they're trying to put through with these grand operations, it really just leads to one team constantly steamrolling the other just because one got put in a better position than the other. And worse yet, the maps don't even feel like they're designed for grand operations. They feel like they're designed just for the regular conquest mode, which is what I put most of my time into. The one way that I see them fixing the Grand Operations mode would be to include many more campaigns, and end off with having 8 or even 10 plus different campaigns that you might find yourself in the Grand Operations playlist. Currently with only the 3, and with several of those having largely unbalanced maps, it really just makes the entire game mode unfun to play. And with that out of the way, let's move on to the gameplay section. Now, I'm not going to be going over everything, because if you've ever played a multiplayer FPS, then you're going to know most of the systems in this game, so I'm just really going to talk about these standout features and things that make it different from the other multiplayer FPS games out there. And one of the biggest changes that you'll see from Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5 is actually how they went about fixing the medic problem that Battlefield 1 had. If you don't happen to know about the medic problem in Battlefield 1, I'll give a quick rundown. Essentially, a lot of people played medic because it had really good weapons, but then they didn't really play the role of a medic. Instead, they were just infantry that was running around gunning people, and they wouldn't heal anybody or res teammates. And thankfully, I can say that that is not a problem in Battlefield 5. Even when I'm playing by myself in just a random squad, I am almost always picked up unless my body just gets put out in the middle of an open place where the medic would just get shot. If I have a chance of being revived, a lot of medics will actually come and revive me. And they also alleviated the problem by allowing any of your squad mates to come and revive each other. Although the medic did get shafted in one field, the weapons that are available to the medic are mostly subpar, with one glaring exception that I will talk about here in a few minutes. The other standout change is the addition of the building system that they added in the game. Around most objectives, you can actually build heavy fortifications, and these actually play a large role in how easy or difficult it is to take or defend an objective. And I think that that adds just a new sense of teamwork, because one person can't stay behind and build all the defenses around an objective. You actually need a group of people to do it. And overall, I found that just this sense of teamwork is throughout the entirety of the multiplayer in this game. You'll see everything from pushing lines together to actually having skirmishes and full-on conflicts where multiple different squads are working together without communicating really at all, and they're working together and trying to achieve the same goal. And this isn't really something that you would see in previous Battlefield games. Usually squads would work together, but the team as a whole would be kind of disconnected, and you don't really feel that here. You can feel the front line kind of move and shift, and you can see a whole team kind of push an area together without any real kind of communication between the different squads, and it's really great to see that here. And now let's talk about the one glaring issue that is going on currently with the multiplayer, and that is weapon balancing. Each of the 4 available classes has about 7 primary weapons available to them. And of those 7 primary weapons in each class, there's really only 1, 2, maybe 3 that are actually really worth using for an extended period of time. To give the perfect example, we merely have to look at the medic class. Most of the machine guns that the medic has available to it are just garbage, but once you unlock the MP40, it is one of the best guns in the game. Not only does it have a decent damage output, but it is also one of the most accurate fully auto weapons in the game. That is including LMGs, assault rifles, and every other fully automatic weapon in the game. For the assault class, it also has a similar story. Pretty much everybody bypasses most of the weapons until they reach the STG-44, and then almost every high-level assault player will use the STG-44 and no other weapon. You can also see the same thing with the recon and support classes, although in those 2 specific cases, they have a few weapons that are viable when you reach a higher level. Now, sadly, I think that DICE is going to nerf the weapons that people see as too powerful or overpowered. Personally, I think that what they should do instead is just buff the weapons that aren't doing well enough, and then continue to introduce weapons that are good and aren't lacking in power or accuracy. And speaking of accuracy, the weapons in Battlefield 5 are ridiculously accurate. I have on several occasions counter-sniped with SMGs or assault rifles because I can actually put bullets out at that distance and have them hit right around my target. Bringing up the MP40 again, you can actually spec the weapon out so that its hip fire is so accurate that you can reliably hit and kill targets at 20, maybe even 30 plus meters away. And speaking of specializations, that's something else new that they added to Battlefield 5. These are just some general upgrades that you can add to your weapon, such as better hipfire accuracy, less recoil, improved ADS time, just different things like that you can spec out your weapon, and it actually goes down a specialization tree, so you can't have all the specializations at one time. You have to choose one or the other. And personally, I like this kind of specialization tree. It really replaces the attachments that you would see in other games, but attachments in World War II don't really make much sense, so having these specializations is a good workaround for that. And there's one final thing that I want to talk about before I get into my final thoughts, and that is how leveling works in Battlefield 5, because they changed it up quite a bit. Player level no longer means anything. The only level that actually matters now is your class level, and each class can be leveled from 0 up to 20. All of the things that you would unlock in a class are now tied to that class level, so all the weapons and gadgets that you unlock are tied directly to your class level. Now, I personally like this system, but I wish that they still gave you something more than just some face paints for leveling up your main player level. Also, when they add new weapons to the game, I wonder if they're just going to increase the cap for the class levels, or if they're just going to automatically give you a weapon if you're already, say, rank 20 in a class. And speaking of new weapons, I almost completely forgot to talk about how Battlefield has switched to a live service game model. If you don't know what that is, it's basically they are getting rid of the premium pass and paid DLCs, and they're replacing that with an in-game cosmetic cash shop. Now, I don't think that this cash shop is actually in the game currently. I haven't found any place where I can actually buy something with real money yet, but in the future they say that it's going to be just a cosmetic only, and with the way that their stock prices went with Battlefront 2 and their other recent games and just their stock prices over the last year, I think that they're actually going to stay with that, because I don't think that they can suffer too many more heavy blows like they have in the last year. And we'll just have to see if the content that they release post-launch is enough, because with the current content roadmap that they've released, it didn't really give any details, so we don't have much to go on. Although, from the time of recording this, it is reported that the first update is going to be on December 4th, and it's going to add in a new map, new mode, and several new weapons. So if each update is something like that, then we will definitely have enough content, although we know that each new update won't add in new maps and new modes, but hopefully they will add in new weapons, because I think that the number of weapons in the game is currently a little lacking, definitely when you compare it to, say, the list in Battlefield 4. So now that I've pretty much gone through everything, let's go on to my final thoughts, and let's give this game a score. Personally, I've been having a ton of fun with this game. I've been streaming it almost every single day, and I just love playing through it. I've already completely maxed out my medic, gone through medic mastery, which is the special challenges that you get once reaching the top level for each class. I'm almost on the assault class mastery, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I do wish that there were more weapons in the game, and I do wish that the war stories was a bit better, but overall I really, really enjoy playing this game, and I see myself enjoying this game for a while to come. In fact, this game might actually make it on my top 10 games of the year. Actually, I can almost guarantee that it will, because I'm just enjoying it that much. And with that, it should come as no surprise that this game gets the score of a buy it now. Even more so when you can actually just buy a month of EA Premium, which is only $15, and you get to play it for a whole month to see if you actually want to play it for longer, or if you just want to put it down. So $15 for a game for a month, plus if you want to play any EA game in the future, then you just have to get premium for a month, and then you can play whatever game. So it's really a no-brainer. Personally, I didn't go with premium. I bought the deluxe edition, so I actually got to play it a week early, or like 5 days early. I think that what they did with the staggered release with the 3 different release dates was really kind of stupid, but those days didn't really give that much of an advantage besides map knowledge. So really they shouldn't have done it, but it's already gone and passed, and I don't think that it was that big of a deal. But that's pretty much all that I have to say about Battlefield 5, so I'm going to end this review off here. As always, I'm Raiden from Blue Gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.